Here on the Ratings Eventing podcast, we have teamed up with our very good friends over at BedMax, as well as our very own Spike the Vet, to give you guys, our lovely listeners, some tip-top tips. And let me tell you, listeners, that is quite a mouthful to say. We are on take number 55, approximately. Spike, what have you got for us today?
Oh, Nicole, I've got another top tip for you. What we're looking at this time is that really important thing of ensuring that even though you're using brilliant bedding like BedMax, it's what you're doing day to day to look after that bedding and how often you're changing it, how deep that bedding is. Got to have a really good level of bedding in there to make sure that we are in a position of not having abrasions happening on hocks, sore areas on hooves, damaging coronary bands. We need to be making sure that we're changing that bedding really regularly. And also we're really trying to avoid that build-up of that horrible, horrible ammonia smell that we can get in stables.
So keeping it really clean. What is so awful about ammonia apart from the really bad smell?
Well, ammonia is that real like jarring and cloying smell that catches at the back of your throat. And that is very, very inflammatory in horses' airways. It causes damage to the mucosa. And then that is how we then get secondary bacterial infections. And then suddenly we've got a coughing, ill horse. And something as simple as ensuring that we have a really, really clean and safe environment for the horse will undoubtedly reduce the risk of you and your horse seeing the vet more often.
There you go. Another brilliant top tip. Thank you, Spike.
Thank you, Nicole. Always here with more top tips.
Oh God, it's so exciting. Happy Hail Bob Day.
It is a happy Hail Bob Day.
That was Arila coming into the competition.
Eventing Manager is back.
Best show that we have, Alphabetti Spaghetti.
Looking forward to seeing quality horses.
I mean, you're a bit of an eventing geek just like us.
Welcome to the Ratings Eventing podcast, and listeners, we have got a When Nicole Met episode, very kindly supported once again by our great friends at BedMax. And today's guest is a young lady who we have had on the podcast before. We have spoken to her on a few occasions, but we want to delve a little bit deeper into what makes her tick, because she is one of the brightest young talents on the eventing circuit. Bubby Upton, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Nicole. What a flattering introduction. Yeah, it's so nice to be here. So thank you.
No pressure from now, Bubby. No pressure. Let's go back a few years, because where did your love of horses come from?
So I think it's fair to say, to be honest, that riding has always been a massive part of my life. I have ridden for as long as I can remember. I've grown up with ponies. You know, my mum rode when I was younger. My siblings and I all did pony club together. So I've kind of always done it, and I've always had that bug for it. You know, when my siblings, much to my parents' relief, gave up when they were kind of teenagers, you know, they couldn't get me ever off a pony, and it was, you know, always the ones that were too naughty for my brother or sister or whatever, I would get on them and ride them. And there was just always that drive. And to be honest, whatever I did and whatever I do, I always strive to, you know, do it to my absolute best. But there was that, you know, real love for horses and ponies and for working with them. So that's how it kind of began, and I've never looked back.
How did the journey into eventing sort of come about? Where did that bug come from? Because you were obviously very keen through sort of pony club days, but when did the eventing bug catch you?
So I think eventing bug probably caught me when I did my first pony club championships, to be honest. So I went when I was 9 to it was the novice championship, so inch, so like B90, on my little 13-hand pony. And I always loved the dressage when I was younger, loved the show jumping as well. I always did the Pony Club Championships for show jumping as well. But I think the reason why eventing stuck as opposed to dressage or show jumping was, you know, that adrenaline rush cross country and the real, you know, need for speed and stuff like that. So I think that's where eventing really captured me and was the cross country, to be honest. That's what set it aside from show jumping or dressage. But I did do a little bit of show jumping, never, you know, seriously. And I do love show jumping and sometimes think, oh, should I, dip my toe into that water? But yeah, I think it's just always been eventing, to be honest. And I think I never made an active choice to do eventing over dressage or show jumping. But I think if I had to answer why, it would have to be because of the cross country.
And where did your partnership with the wonderful little Alfie start? So he was the first pony that you really, I guess, made your mark and sort of got the bug as such for championship riding. So where did he come from?
Yeah, so he's actually a really interesting story. So we were at an event. I can't remember where it was. I think it was maybe Weston Park or somewhere. And we were parked next to this family of people called the O'Driscolls. And no, actually, sorry, that's incorrect. We were parked next to the Humphreys. I don't know if you remember Harry Humphrey. Who did pony teams. Yeah. And his mum kept saying, we know this amazing pony, you need to go and try it. And I thought, oh, yeah. And anyway, we went along and tried him, and he came up the stable, and we thought, oh, really? He looked very, very average. I rode him on the flat, and I couldn't ride one side of him, which was, to be honest, a story for quite a while when I was riding him. He was very, very difficult on the flat and really taught me so much in the dressage phase and how to really ride and get the most out of a difficult pony or horse. So I tried him on the flat and I was like, oh God, no. But then I jumped him and I was like, wow, honestly, he is an exceptional jumper. The feeling he gave me that first real taste of power and scope and carefulness, and he was an absolute machine, to be honest with you. So as soon as I jumped him, I then actually started taking him seriously. But because I had paid so little attention to him from the minute he walked out the stable, we had to try him again. And we actually went to Bellevue to try him with Caroline Moore, because the girl, Beth O'Driscoll, who rode him, was trained by Caroline, and I couldn't hold one side of him. He was a very, very strong pony. But, one thing that was always there was his class in the jumping phase. So we bought him, and he went on to achieve amazing things. I remember having some teary rides on him in the arena at home, saying to him, I can't hold him. As I, tried to do a transition at A, and it wasn't until C that I eventually got into trot. So he definitely taught me so much. He tested my patience a lot of the time, but boy, was he class. He was an amazing pony, and like you say, gave me that first taste of championship success and the honor and privilege of riding for my country. And he really, really helped make me the rider that I want to be and kind of have developed into over the years.
I mean, it was your first appearance on a championship team. You've since done 2 juniors and 2 young rider European championships, but that one pony European championship, you took the individual silver, team silver as well. It was over in Ireland at Mill Street in 2014. What was that like? Because it's a pretty dreamy debut at a championship.
Yeah, it was very dreamy. And to be honest with you, I had another amazing pony that had campaigned that year as well, called How and Loganberry. And they'd both not been at the top 6 or 8, I think, in any pony trial that year. They were truly incredible that year. And I'd suffered a big disappointment the year before, where I thought I'd done enough to be picked on How and Loganberry, actually, for the championships. And I missed out on selection, and, the reason that I was given or whatever was really tough to swallow, but it really drove me to prove that, I was so hungry for it and that, I deserved my spot. So there was a little bit of a roller coaster on the way to achieving my kind of championship debut. But in the run up to the championships, we were umming and ahhing as to which pony to pick. And it wasn't until the final training that I actually switched to Alfie, because I was set on How and Loganberry, completely set on taking him. He was the way easier ride, was much more reliable in the dressage phase. I think he beat Alfie in the dressage every time out that year. So he was the obvious choice, but he was a lot slower cross country. He didn't have that same stamina as Alfie. And it wasn't until the final pony training that the trainer that we had said that it was a dressage judge that was judging us as we ran through our tests, and you cannot leave that pony behind. You have to take him, that being Alfie. And I was like, whoa, because I really had never thought of taking him. But what a good decision it was, because he went and he did probably the best test he's ever done. I think being at the venue for that much longer really helped him, because he was a really blood and quite a hot pony. And the cross country caused quite a lot of trouble. Our pathfinder had a really, really unlucky tumble going just through the water. So it meant that, each one of us had to go clear, and it was kind of pressure that I'd never really felt before. I'd only ever done it for, myself and my family and my team. I'd never had other individuals' success that was relying on me. So it was really amazing for me to experience that young. And then, the same again in the show jumping, that kind of pressure. But looking back on it now, it's all a little bit of a blur, actually. It sounds quite weird. Whereas all my other championships, I remember every single finite detail so vividly. But the ponies, it's all a bit of a blur, to be honest. It all kind of blends into one. And I kind of remember my warm up, and I kind of remember finishing my show jumping round. But I think it was because I was just I was probably quite overwhelmed, to be honest, and a little bit naive and unaware of any of it, which is, was a good place to be. But it meant that I think entered this kind of zone of focus that just, meant that nothing else mattered. But meant that I don't really remember it that clearly, to be honest, which is quite strange. But yeah, it was an incredible experience. And like I said, it set me up so well for, then what I've gone on to achieve since. So I'm, eternally grateful to Alfie for giving me that.
I can totally understand why it could be overwhelming. Like, to go to a championship as a pony rider, you're under 16. So you, I think, 15 or something at the time.
Yeah.
There's a lot to take in. It is that sort of first time. Yes, you've had pressure of riding on a team at a pony club championship. That's a bit different when you're in a different country and you've got your nation's flag on your jacket and your hat, and there's flags everywhere, and there's a real support crew, and it all just adds to the occasion and the pressure. And you can totally understand why actually it is just an entirely different level. Mill Street actually has been a pretty happy hunting ground for you, because a couple of years later, you'd been to another Junior Europeans already with Eros DHI, but then you went and you set a rather remarkable first phase score, which at the time I think tumbled all of the records, listeners. I know Equirating's got very excited about it. What was that feeling like, going back to Mill Street? You'd obviously been there once before. I imagine it felt a lot more comfortable having had the experience that you'd had under your belt. But that was sort of the start of your journey to being the Junior European champion.
Yeah, so I actually went back in 2015, which was my first year in horses. So I left ponies a year early. We made the decision to do that because I was relatively tall and wanted to focus on my GCSEs without having a championship as such in mind. So I went back in 2015 and actually won the big 2-star there on Fernhill Rockstar, which was a big surprise. It was my first international win. It was my first 2-star on a horse. So it was fantastic. And, I could go on for hours about what that horse did for me. He is, holds such a special place in my heart. But so I went back to Mill Street that year, which was so special. And I remember shedding a tear as I was driving in with Mum, and it was just really sent, shivers down my spine, because that was the place, like you say, where my dream came true at Mill Street. It really did. And like as a kid, I remember all I ever wanted was the GB hat silk. I was obsessed by it. And when I become obsessed with something, like I don't stop until I get it. And because I remember I followed Sophie Beattie quite closely. She was, a good kind of family friend, and she did lots of Pony Europeans. And I just remember being, like I say, obsessed with that hat silk that she had. So, Mill Street was a place that all became a reality. So going back there in 2015 was so special. Having more success there made it even more special. then when I returned in 2017 to the Junior Europeans, like the confidence I had was just, there was so much. I was so ready for the occasion with Eros DHI. He was on fantastic form all year, kind of was seeking a bit of redemption from the year before, where we all had very high hopes for myself and him at the Junior Europeans in Monte Libretti, but the atmosphere all got too much. I underworked him and, but learned a massive lesson, obviously, in the process. So bit of redemption, but then also, coming back to Mill Street. So it was a really, really special week. And like you say, that dressage test still probably the best I'll ever do, to be honest.
I mean, I'm just going to put it into context for you listeners. So it was in old money, a 23.9, which in new money, because obviously the dressage multiplier has been removed, is a 15.9. It is absolutely extraordinary. You don't see scores like we all get excited if we see a sub 20. So to see something like that is quite incredible. You'd been obviously on a podium previously at Mill Street. Did it feel different, sort of being that European title coming your way?
Yeah, it was so different. Standing on the top spot was incredible. And hearing, the national anthem playing, for my horse and I was so, so special. And, like I said, that it was the first time, like obviously I'd won double silver, but it was a French national anthem being played. So it was the first time that it was, that I was like on the top of the podium. So it was incredible. And right from the start of the week, because of the memories of Mill Street, right to the end, it was just an unforgettable week. He was faultless, Eros DHI. And after we had done that dressage test, we were all a bit in shock, to be honest. I kept glimpsing up at the scoreboard when I was trotting round, and I just saw like trending. It was something like 83% or something, and I thought, oh my god, keep going.
Now you're like, don't mess it up. Don't look again. Don't mess it up.
Yeah, and he was getting quite tired as the test went on, and he's a cheeky little horse, I thought, and he massively had a tendency to change in his counter canter. I thought, absolutely not. And when the test finished, like everyone just erupted. And I just looked at the scoreboard and I just like thought, oh my God, I just couldn't stop hugging him. And my arms just wrapped around his neck. So, after he had done that cross country, I was like, game on, rode it, like my life depended on it. And then show jumping, I was so lucky to have quite a cushion. And that feeling, going through the finish line is what we all do it for, punch of the air. And it was just incredible. It really was. Obviously, the team doing well as well, winning Team Silver made it equally, as special, because it meant that we were all celebrating together, and it was just a really, really special week, to be honest. And, the horse Eros DHI is another one that holds a really special place in my heart, and that achievement is one that, I'm really, really proud of and will be for a long time.
And what about sort of deciding what you were going to do with your future? Because you took your education very, very seriously, and then that was a theme that continued sort of from your university days, which you've just finished. Hallelujah. We've not had you on the show since they finished. I feel like we could have a fanfare and throw you a party, Bubby, because I felt your pain over the last few months. But you juggled university and horses. So at what point in your sort of young career, in the early part of your career, did you say, actually, I want to go to university, or I want to pursue my education? Or were you at any point ever tempted to say, do you know what, actually, I just want to go and do the horses now? How did that journey come about?
So actually, there was never a point where education was ever going to be put on the back foot, to be honest. It was always something that I was very passionate about. It was never an option for me to, not do my A-levels, and I never considered not going to university. It was completely my choice, but it was never an option. It was always going to happen. So my GCSEs, and A-levels. So when I went to the Junior Europeans and won with Eros DHI in 2017, that was my A-level year. So I've always had to but I always have juggled horses and education. it's always been tough. I remember, exam period, finals period, all that kind of now time that we're in now was always extremely stressful because it was, crunch time for the horses, crunch time for my academics. So it's weird though, because however hard it was, in my GCSEs and then in my AS and then in my A levels, I kept doing it to myself by, going to university. I wouldn't change it for the world. I'm not going to lie, and I'm not going to pretend that it was easy, because it wasn't at all. It was really, really tough. Particularly, the last 4 or 5 months have been really difficult, just making it all work and making it all happen and doing both to the top of, my ability. But I'm really proud of what I've achieved, but it wouldn't have been possible without my family and my amazing team around me. And I guess, going back to your question, I guess academics has always been so important to me, and university was always going to happen. Where I went to university was the big question mark. I originally was,
That's my next question, because you're based in Suffolk, and so you go to Edinburgh, Bubby. Edinburgh's quite a long way from Suffolk.
I know. So it sounds mad, but actually, when we thought about it and mapped it out, it actually made the most sense. So, like I said, my academics I'm passionate about. I did very well in my A levels and GCSEs, so I wanted to go to a top university. And within my radius of where I live, Cambridge was, the closest, obviously, but I will put my hands up and say I wasn't quite clever enough to get there. And then we looked, a bit further afield. So then you had like Nottingham and Loughborough, but the courses fancy as such. So, and then we went to stay with my auntie up in Edinburgh, and we flew there from Stansted, and we thought, oh my God, this is actually very easy. And we tried out then the tram from the airport into town, which was so easy as well. And we timed it, and it was 3.5 hours door to door, with, fast track and whatever. And we thought, wow, I think this actually could be doable, because I was so lucky in the sense that EasyJet have a flight probably 5 times a day from Stansted, which is only 40 minutes from me. So financially it made it doable because of the quantity of the flights. It made them a lot cheaper. So it was about £18 a flight, and we've made it work. Yeah, a lot of air miles. I need to plant a lot of trees for my carbon footprint. But although it sounds ridiculous, it's doable, and it has been doable.
£18 a flight. You'd be filling up your car for a hell of a lot more than that these days. So
exactly, and the train as well.
You wouldn't get to many universities 3.5 hours door to door. So, you would definitely.
No, and also you can't work. I worked every minute of my flight and tram journey, so that was essentially an hour and a half of work that if you were driving to any university, you couldn't do. So it actually, although it sounds ridiculous, there was logic behind it, and it worked.
And what about your team at home? Because obviously they've been a massive part of kind of your journey over the last few years. Your mum has been a massive influence in your career, hasn't she?
Yeah, mum has been my complete rock, to be honest. For as long as I can remember, she has been sacrificing so much to make my unfeasible juggle feasible. She is just, honestly, she's the most incredible woman ever. And there's obviously 3 of us. There's me, my brother, and my sister. But she's kind of become part of, it's become part of her dream as well. And we've done everything together. And whether it was when I was at school, she'd drive the horses up one evening, and I'd ride them after school. She'd stay in the lorry, and then she'd get up at kind of 5 o'clock in the morning with me to help get them ready before I rode them before school. So she did that every week for 3 years in the season. So she's been totally incredible, and there's no words that will ever kind of be able to thank her enough or kind of express my gratitude for what she's done, because it wouldn't be possible without her, and the rest of my family as well, through the tough times, through the lows they've been there, through the highs they've been there to celebrate. And I've said it before, but they keep me so like grounded, keep everything in perspective, and nothing would be possible without my whole family. And then also, of course, my team at home have been incredible. I've been lucky enough over the years to have some, fantastic grooms, of which each of them, so in ponies, I had an amazing girl called Emma, and then in juniors, I had Flora, and then now I've got Katie, and also Emma. So I've been so lucky to have, stability blocks that have made it all possible. Their journeys came to an end. Actually, after I finished ponies, my Emma left, and then after juniors, Flora, and then now kind of Katie. So they've kind of had their different segments in my journey. So it's been really, and I'm so close to all of them still, and they're very much still, interested and engaged and passionate about following my journey, and it's just so special. We're all this one big family, I think, and yeah, it's amazing, and it wouldn't be possible without any one of them, to be honest.
It is an unbelievable amount of effort that goes in from sort of so many different pieces of the puzzle to make it all fit together and make it all run like clockwork. What about your brother and sister now? I take it they don't ride anymore.
No, so my brother always says to me, "Oh, come on, let me on one. And I'm like, absolutely not. You're far too heavy. And so my brother and dad play a bit of polo, so they, ride in that kind of style. So my dad will come on like evening hacks with me on his polo pony and try and like ride me off my horse, because that's what they do in polo. I'm like, don't do that, as Cola's like freaking out. But my brother, so he's like sat on Joey Cannavaro a few times, and he is so passionate about it. Honestly, my whole family are my number one fan, but he particularly loves it. He loves coming along to the events. He's the first to like wash off all the horses and everything like that. And he's, I think because he is quite horsey, he just loves it so much. So it's so nice having him at all the events. All the big events. They obviously pick and choose which ones they come to.
They come to the best ones, Bubby.
Yeah, only. And also, funnily enough, they've only actually got interested since basically since the Pony Europeans. They didn't come before, the Great British Flag and stuff were involved. So I tease them about that. But no, they're so important to me, and having them there makes everything so much more special. At badminton, they were all there, and it was, it makes the loads more bearable having my family there, for sure.
Can I ask you about badminton? Because you made your 5-star debut last year at Po, and we sort of caught up on that. We had you on the show earlier on in the year, so I won't go into a huge amount of detail, but very much, a really exciting sort of first taste of 5-star. And all roads led to badminton this spring with Cola, who had been or has been such a star for you over the years, coming through Young Riders and everything else. And he was clear inside the time at Po in the autumn of last year. So first of all, I guess, what was the feeling like going into your first badminton? Had it always been something that you had dreamed of?
I guess so. I never grew up going to badminton, to be honest. I always went to Burley because it was more local to me. But obviously there's this huge hype about badminton. So it has that, special feeling within us all, I think, as riders. So it was really exciting that, we were going, and, he was going on fantastic form. So the feeling was, really exciting. There were a few, he decided to bang himself pretty close to badminton. So it was all a little bit touch and go with a big knee. I was like, good timing, Cola. But that all kind of sorted itself out by the time we got there, but made the preparation far from ideal. So I guess I never really had the opportunity to get really, really excited about it, because there was this, fat knee, and I was thinking, God, are we even going to get there? Which, I didn't really publicize and no one knew, but we definitely knew it in our home team, and we were all thinking, oh God, we're literally a week away, and he decides to do that now. But I think that's classic, isn't it? You hear about it the whole time with badminton preparations never going smoothly. But yeah, it was really exciting. I kind of, to be honest with you, just took it as any other event obviously trotting into, I think the first time really that I thought, wow, we're at Badminton, was coming through the arch to the trot up with that massive crowd of people. It was like, whoa. And Cola was like, whoa. There was a lot of people there, you know, just for the trot up, let alone dressage day, cross country day, show jumping day. So I think that's when it really kicked in, and you know, then when you hear you're accepted, it's, you know, it's game on and you know, bring it on.
The people were something else. I've never seen crowds like that at a first horse inspection at Badminton before. It was just absolutely incredible. And the atmosphere was electric. How did the crowds feel over the whole weekend? Because it must be a pretty special feeling as a rider, as a sports person, you know, to be competing at the top of your game in front of that kind of environment. Must be pretty unique. Were you surprised by it? Did you enjoy it? Did you notice it? How did that feel?
I absolutely loved it. All I wish was that I could have, you know, celebrated after each phase that bit more, in the sense of, you know, I felt like, you know, the dressage wasn't quite, you know, well, was far from, you know, what he's capable of. Cross country obviously was so near, but yet so far, so wasn't celebrating that. And then the show jumping, it was what could have been, and I felt quite emotional after show jumping. I got, you know, really excited and, you know, engaged with the crowd and stuff, because he produced an incredible clear round, and I just felt like this horse deserved so much more. And I almost felt like I feel like the crowd kind of were feeling it with me, because I'm sure lots of them saw what happened the day before, and it was so special, to be honest, that amount of people. But like I say, you don't really soak it all in until the end of each phase, at which point you hope it's a celebration and an engagement with the crowd, you know, in which, you know, I wasn't quite as delighted with, you know, the test that I know we could do. And then cross country, you know, like I said, that didn't happen. So it was so special, but I really hope that one day I can really enjoy it, you know, to how special it really is. You know, through the celebrations. And like when I went to the start box, the cross country, Laura had just finished, and you know, she was really razzing the crowd up, and I just thought, wow, you know, that's what we live for as riders, that feeling when you finish. And it was a, you know, a packed crowd, and it was just absolutely incredible. And you know, like I say, that's what I work for, and what I am working for right now is hopefully to be able to, you know, finish and punch the air and celebrate at Burghley or Badminton next year, because the crowds were incredible. They really were.
Can I ask you about that final fence? Because you say people were with you. Honestly, Bubby, there were so many people with you, because the heartbreak of a run out, having had such a brilliant round around a very, very tough Badminton. And there is so much to take from it, because obviously you had such a brilliant round, and this would be something that can be, you know, I'm pretty certain it probably won't happen again in your career. It's something very rare anyway. What kind of mixture of emotions was that? Because on the one hand, this incredible round, on the other hand, I'm sure crushing disappointment.
Yeah, so quite hard to describe, to be honest. I couldn't believe it. I was in absolute shock for probably the 15 minutes post cross country. I honestly could not believe it. He was simply sensational, and to be honest, faultless around the whole course up until the last fence. There wasn't one moment that I would have done anything differently or wanted anything to happen differently, really. I mean, he pecked slightly on landing after the footbridge, but apart from that, I mean, he was just class. And that partly makes it easier, because you think, you know, he did it all basically, and he showed everyone how incredible he is. But then it also makes it so much harder to swallow, because you think, how can you do all of that and then I just, you know, let it go at the last fence? So I take so much kind of, it makes me feel so much better knowing how incredible he was, but then also it makes it so much harder, because you think he really did deserve that clear round with, you know, how few time he was going to get on on my badminton debut. And I think it's pretty rare that you can genuinely look back and watch your debut and relive the feeling of it just feeling just so much fun. And there was never a moment of doubt ever. He never gave me a scary moment, an iffy jump. He literally just made it look like a schooling exercise at home. So that made it a lot harder to deal with. But like I say, also part of it made it easier to swallow. So it was a weird one. And then, like I say, I was in complete shock. I couldn't believe what had happened for about 10, 15 minutes. Then I laughed about it a bit. Kind of was like, I cannot believe that's happened, in the sense of like almost laughing in shock. And then I kind of got really sad about it. And that's where my family, were amazing. And then I watched it back, I analysed it, and then you have to move forward.
You do.
Yeah.
It's tough. I'm like, it's one of those things that it is so rare to see. And the thing that I think stuck out for me was he was brilliant around the whole course, but actually I loved his show jumping round on Sunday, because to pick yourself back up, having been that close and obviously dealing with that disappointment, to then come into a packed badminton grandstand on the Sunday. And he's had a couple of poles down on the final day before, and actually he proved to everybody that he could put in a clear round over a very tough badminton track. He just had a couple of time faults, and the time was very, very tight. So lots to look forward to as to what comes next. I'm not going to make you relive it anymore, Bubby. I'm really sorry. I felt really bad asking. It's like, I've got to ask, because listeners were heartbroken with us all, because there were a lot of people that felt your pain that day.
Yeah, but I think, like you said, the clear round shoulder thing was really crucial for me. Like, I know when we discussed after Po, I have always felt very strongly that he is an amazing jumper and has always deserved the clear on the last day, and he's perfectly capable of it. Not making excuses at all for the past polls, but I've always felt like, I did a little bit wrong here, there, and that stopped it from being a clear round, but it was so close to being one. So the way he went into that ring at badminton, or we went in and showed everyone, what should have been, to be honest, was really special, very emotional. I remember just finishing and just pointing at him and just thinking he deserves to be jumping for the top 10, to be honest. But it was a great, way to finish, and, like you said, to show, to be honest, how much I've developed as an athlete, in the way that I, brushed myself off and got back out there and carried on fighting, because, in the past I didn't take disappointments well, and I've had to learn to deal with that over the years, and, like I say, analyse it, take the positives, learn from it, but then move on. And I was really proud of how I handled it at badminton, and like I say, just delighted that he was able to show everyone what he is capable of, and he'll make us hungrier to get the result that we deserve.
Dare I ask if there might be another big B on the horizon for him at some point soon?
There is another big B 100% on the horizon, and I'm already, chomping at the bit to get back out there and like I say, just get that result that was so close and that he so deserves. So I'm so excited for Burley. Hopefully, all things going well in preparation. I actually had my first ride back on him today, and he feels fantastic and full of beans. So we're all so excited as a team, and like I say, not just for him, but for everyone that's helped get me here. They all deserve, the results. So really exciting times moving forward. And like I say, we just make us more determined and even stronger.
A determined, driven Bubby is a terrifying thing for everybody else. Everybody's very nervous. Let me ask you about the other 5-star pony in your yard, because Cannavaro, lovely Joey, who has just been such a brilliant trooper over the years for you. He is the reigning under-25 national champion. He made his 5-star debut last year, and the plan is to go to Le Moulin in a few weeks' time. His preparation, I think, has all been going very well. He certainly looked brilliant at Chatsworth a few weeks ago. So how are you feeling heading into what will now be sort of your third 5-star? It's getting a bit, kind of more
normal.
I was going to say old hat. Yeah, or old hat is a terrible description for a 5-star, but more normal. Like because there is, and we're as bad as anybody for this. That hype around 5-star, first 5-star, first badminton, and yes, there's that. But actually, it's also, I imagine, quite a nice feeling to be like, well, I've been there, I know what it's like, I've done the test, and I'm ready for this.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think, to be honest, though, the step up to 5-star is huge. Like, the room for error is zero. You can't afford to, make mistakes and get away with it. Like I discovered at Poe on Cannavaro, or known as Joey, at home. So I'm so excited to head to Le Moulin with him. Just when you mention his name, you should see the smile on my face. He's a horse that just melts my heart because, like you say, he's such a trooper. He's got a heart of gold, and he's just a horse as time and time again exceeded all expectations. He really has. So to go to Le Moulin with him on the form that he's in is really, really exciting. He's an exceptional horse, and I'm really excited and intrigued, actually, because he hasn't ever gone that trip cross country. So we've been working really hard on his fitness over the years. He was in, tip-top fitness, ready for Poe. But we never got to see how he lasted the distance. So I'm, really excited to see how he steps up to 5-star, because it's really going to be essentially his first time round a 5-star cross country.
I remember actually seeing you at Bicton last year in the under 25 class, when it was his sort of big first 4-star long format as such. I think he'd been to Burnham Market the year before, but the feeling around Bicton was very, very different to Burnham Market, which was much more flat. Bicton was hilly, it was unbelievably tough, and it certainly proved that way. And I remember you saying, I'm not sure how he's going to cope with the distance. And there was this hill coming up towards, was it the Big Oxer and the Skinny Brush hill coming out of the main arena? And you'd said, if he comes up there, I'm sort of going to know what I'm sat on. And I remember sort of holding my breath thinking, come on, Joey, because he is one of those horses that you just can't help but fall in love with, especially listeners, if you watch him show jump, because he is just, he's a horse you'd want to be sat on the final day. And he just dug so deep and was like, yeah, I've got this, Mum. I'm off. I'm all right. And he was just absolutely superb. And, he's kind of been in the shadow of other horses over the years sometimes. And he's been doing his best, I think it's fair to say, Bubby, to kind of stick his head above the parapet and say, no, I'm brilliant too. Don't forget about me.
Yeah, no, you're completely right in terms of the shadows, because I bought him back in 2017 and he was a jumper before. And he was in the shadows then of Eros DHI through juniors, and then he moved into another shadow of Cola. But shadow, is harsh because he's never been in the shadow in our eyes. Like, he's always meant so much to us all, and he's a completely our favourite. But for everyone else, who maybe follows, my journey or whatever, then he may be in the shadows because he's always just been picked that bit. So Bicton was just, to be honest, very out of the blue, because I think our conversation was probably more along the lines of, I'm not going to get round. We're not going to get up the hills.
You were fairly like, I don't know whether he's going to get up the hill, though it was a bit of
and I remember very vividly speaking to Piggy on the Wednesday or something, and I hadn't walked the course at that point. But there was a lot of chat about it. I remember, like, everyone was whispering about how tough it was, and and I don't really listen to whispers and stuff like that. I'm not really affected by it. But I remember saying to Piggy, have you walked the course? And she said, have you? I said, no. She said, oh, God, Bubby, they need to be burly fit for this one. And I remember looking at her going, well, I'm going to have to switch classes then. I said, there was no chance I'm going to get round the 4-star long on Joey. Not through his lack of ability or trying or anything, but simply, the stamina has always been a question mark with him. And And I was very much prepared and visualizing that point in which it's time to put your hand up and stop because he's too tired. And I've ridden him that tired before, and, I wasn't prepared to do it again. And I was very much, prepared for that. I, spoke to people like William Fox Pitt. He gave me amazing advice about how to ride the hills on a tired horse and stuff like that, of which was completely invaluable, to be honest. And we just kept, in a really good rhythm. And I had to be very, very careful to get him off every fence, because as soon as you get him a bit deep, he goes bang and goes sky high, of which obviously, saps his energy every fence. So I had to make sure every fence I was just that bit off them, so that he wasn't doing those, amazing jumps that we see kind of on the final day show jumping. And I remember coming up that hill to the one that you said, which was very late on, and to me that was crunch time. That was, if I get to the top of the hill and then press him and he responds, I'm home. I've got him home. And I remember coming up the hill and I was speaking to him. I was saying, come on, Joey, he's got literally this, and then just one little hill and we're home. And I went up the hill and I got to the top and I gave him 2 strides and I pressed him and he responded. And I thought, yes, here we go. And I really couldn't believe it. I was just so proud of him, because, it was such a test for him and not his type of track at all with the amount of hills. And he just showed again what a trooper he is, and just how special he is. But also, the bond we have. I'd do anything for him and he'd do anything for me, and it really shone through that day. So it was very special for him to get his day in the limelight.
And there is a big few weeks coming up for him. Who would you be? I mean, I know you mentioned there, William giving you advice and Piggy, and I'm sure there have been others. Who has been sort of instrumental in your career, either as an inspiration or somebody that actually you go to for advice, who you sort of really look up to on the circuit, that you kind of turn to them above others?
So in terms of riders, I've always, been quite close with Piggy. She comes training at ours a bit, and, I always, bounce ideas and stuff off of her, and she's always been so generous in terms of, I just pick up the phone to her and ask her questions and stuff like that. So she's been, fantastic. William and Mum are quite good friends, so I, always ask him the odd question as well. And I just think with those riders who have got so much experience, I just have achieved so much in their careers. They have so much to offer us, young aspiring athletes. They've done it all. What we want to do, they've done it. So I'm a big believer in tapping into that. So they have been, everyone's so generous with their advice and stuff, but they have been, 2 of the riders that I've gone to particularly, and they were so supportive and generous as well, and helped pick me up after badminton as well. So yeah, those 2 in terms of event riders have been great to be able to, bounce ideas off. But in terms of, I've had lots of amazing trainers over the years, of which each have been crucial in different milestones. So I'm really lucky to have worked with some and continue to work with, incredible people.
And there's obviously very, very big few weeks coming up. We've got Bramham. I know you've got a horse in the under 25 long format there, and another in the 4-star short. And you've got a real string now at the sort of 4 and 5-star level. Then Lamulin, of course. What is it that makes Bubby Upton tick? You're obviously driven. You're obviously hugely ambitious. What is it that drives you? What's the sort of end goal that gets you out of bed in the morning?
Well, I have a couple of different answers to that, actually, because one is winning. At the end of the day, I am the ultimate competitor. I, love winning. I don't like losing, but I've learned, how to optimize it to then help me win the next time. So, that really drives me, and that just always being tested. And that's what I love about working with horses. They're always testing your toolbox, your knowledge, and just so many different skills that they're always testing. and just always make me think, you know, when I go to bed at night, they just make me think, oh, how can I be better for them? And it sounds weird, but that's the kind of relationship I have with them, doing them justice. You know, they are so adored in my team, by myself, by my family, by my grooms, by everyone. And I really genuinely feel that, like, the love that I have for them is then, you know, they then give that back in pure grit and trying their hearts out for me. So that is part of what makes me tick, is the winning, but also, like I said, just the working with the horses. You know, it's so special, and I am a big believer in, you know, if you love what you do, you don't work a day in your life. And I simply love working with these amazing animals, of which, like you said, I've got, you know, I'm so lucky to have an incredible string of horses. Every single one of them is completely different. And that's what makes me get up in the morning, you know, is continuing to tap in differences and not trying to make them the same, or I'm not trying to ride them, you know, the same. And I'm trying to optimize my riding in order to get the best out of them. So there's that, and winning, and yeah, that's what makes me tick, I guess. And I guess I just love how every day throws a different challenge at you, and ultimately, you know, how I can cope with that will define, you know, how successful I am in the future.
Well, I have no doubt, Bubby, that there will be a lot of success in the future, because eventing in equestrian sports are a tough old game, and you do need a hell of a lot of grit and determination and drive, and you have it in spades. Thank you for sharing your story with us on the Eventing podcast. It has been a pleasure to have you on the show, as always, and we will look forward to seeing how the next few weeks and few months go for you, and of course, hopefully, a big old Burley debut in September.
Yeah, well, hopefully, yeah. So a very exciting few weeks coming up, hopefully. And then, yeah, like you say, all systems go for Burley. So, yeah, really exciting. And, yeah, lots of hard work to be done to make my dreams a reality, I guess.
Hard work. But teamwork makes the dream work, as they say. Bubby, thank you so much. Listeners, we hope you have enjoyed the latest instalment in the When Nicole Met series. If there is anybody in particular that you would like to hear from, do get in touch, send us a message, and we will do our best. As always, a big old thank you to BedMax for supporting the show as they do. We couldn't do it without them. Bubby, thank you. Listeners, thank you. We'll be back very soon with more on the EquiRatings Eventing podcast.
Thank you for listening to the EquiRatings Eventing podcast.
Have a wonderful day, everybody, and I look forward to having you back with us soon.
Don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Instagram for more.
Listeners, we'll speak to you again soon.